So the question is, can you take an arrested person to a non-designated police station in order to conduct the intoxilyzer procedure? And I've started seeing some forces are doing this on a more regular basis, and so I want to cover some issues around this because it isn't a clear yes or no. So first off then, under section 30 of PACE, subsection 1A, you can take the person to any police station. Okay, so far so good. However then, section 32, that it shall be designated unless exemptions apply. So when you look then at the exemptions, there's two exemptions. So first, it's in relation to the person's detention isn't going to exceed the 6 hours. And the second issue is around the safety factor. So the officer's on their own or the person's too violent to deal with. So if you've got any of those exemptions, then that means you can go to the non-designated station. So imagine the scenario, you've got two officers out on patrol, they stop a vehicle, they conduct the electronic screening device, they then arrest the person on suspicion of driving whilst over the prescribed limit, and so for their speed of getting someone on the machine, they go to a rural non-designated station in order to rush them through the drink drive procedure. Then the person is over on that machine, so then with the little printout they then drive to the designated station in order to book them in there. So that is happening, but let's have a look at what are the issues in relation to this. So the person hasn't been an issue for violence, there's been two officers there, so do the exemptions apply? A defence counsel could argue no, the exemptions didn't apply there, so therefore why did they go to the non-designated station rather than the designated station? The next part of it is, even if it's justified to take the person to a non-designated station, there's certain procedures once they arrive at that non-designated station which must still occur. So for example, on arrival at that non-designated station, they must be brought before the custody officer and a custody record opened. So if there's no actual custody sergeant there, then how are we going to deal with that? So it might then be that the officer themselves or another officer has to perform that function, but somebody needs to perform the function of the custody officer, and the initial actions as required under PACE must be carried out and conducted before the evidential procedure commences. So that's all the issues around the rights and entitlements and the risk assessment. So PACE Code G 4.3, that emphasises there that on arrival the person must be brought before the custody officer as soon as practicable and the custody record opened. PACE Code C 2.1a also emphasises the person is to be brought before the custody officer, and that applies in designated and non-designated stations. So back to the issue about, can you just have this blanket practice where rural stations have got the intoxilyzer machines there and officers are arresting people on suspicion of being over the prescribed limit, taking them to a non-designated station, popping them on the machine, and then if they are over on that machine, taking them off to the designated site. Well, you've got to look at the issues of, first off, it isn't a designated station, it's non-designated, which is fine, but only if the exemptions apply. So do the exemptions apply in relation to the not expected to be over 6 hours, or it's the safety exemptions? But even if those are justified, upon arrival at the non-designated station, somebody must still perform the role of custody officer, and somebody must commence the custody record, and somebody must conduct the initial actions as legally required by PACE and cover all of the rights and entitlements and the risk assessment. So that hopefully answers the question in relation to, can officers take people to non-designated stations for either the breathalyzer procedure or indeed any evidential procedure. Thank you. My name's Joanne Caffrey and this is Police Custody Basics.